another episode of Two Tims Talking Trash. I'm Tim.
Yeah, British Tim here.
It's also Tim.
And, we're getting in on the trend. We've seen that it's gone viral. It is quite a thought-provoking video, and that is Childish Gambino's This Is America. And, what was your, first impression of it, Tim?
Well, it struck me as something that wasn't very new, but it's probably because I'm definitely a bit more keen on, conscious rap. But there was obviously a lot of people who picked up on it and felt shocked by it, obviously, like the gunshots and all that. But, it's been picking up by the mainstream and all of this. Newspapers are diving into the symbolism. But what struck you about it?
Yeah, no, I definitely just say it's explicit, I think the acts of violence surrounding the shootings that you see take place in the video are just there, raw in your eyes, and it leaves you with a memory. So speaking of those shootings, let's get to the beginning of the video in terms of.
Absolutely.
You have Childish Gambino kind of dancing in quite a eccentric, quite out there, exaggerated manner. I guess as many of the listeners and the public have picked up on, in a way that mimics, the Jim Crow caricature. And, he's dancing up with this unsuspecting victim. So let's speak about that.
All right, so the first victim, obviously the first shock is the man in the chair playing a guitar who ends up with a bag on his head and gets shot in the back, gets executed.
When I see that, I just immediately think of a lynching because first of all, I don't know if many of you noticed it, but as, he goes to see, the victim sits down on the chair, that's one of the first shots, and then when the camera pans on him again, you this time see him with actual blood on his pants, like blood drops. So that's kind of suggesting that there was a beating, there was an act of violence beforehand, there's the hood over his head, and then the final deed is not done. So it just, seems reminiscent of the, typical scenario surrounding the lynching.
And then right as he pulls the trigger, that's when the chorus starts, "This is America," which is very true. That's our history, is a history of violence, particularly against people of color.
So, and then of course there's, all of the dancing, I was impressed by the moves, Gambino can dance, you've got all of the school children, busting a move. For me, and I guess I would be quite skewed in a way as a person of colour, as a black person, but for me when I see that I just immediately think of the whole shucking and jiving aspect in terms of, for us as blacks, as in particular, a lot of the time our role in society or circles or everyday life is reduced to that of the entertainer. And when we're there smiling and doing one of the things that we happen to do quite well in terms of music and the arts, it's there's the lack of fear, we're popular, and it's almost like a means to survival. The moment you kind of break that mold, it can be dangerous for you.
Right, you're not allowed to speak out. You're not allowed to if you're in this position, you're not allowed to speak out. If you're an entertainer, you're relegated to be in that position and not to break that mold. He does this a lot where he's smiling and dancing. Even in these scenes where there's a riot going on behind him, all this chaos and turmoil, he's just smiling and dancing because he's supposed to be an entertainer. He's supposed to be a distraction from the turmoil.
So yeah, there's also that in terms of entertainment, and increasingly nowadays with our reality shows, our Twitter, all these different things are kind of just used as a distraction, as a form of escapism from all of the chaos that surrounds us. But again, just going back to that point of how
you have to shut up and dribble.
Yes, exactly. As a black person in particular, it feels like you're only ever wanted in that capacity in terms of the form of entertaining. The moment a more human, realistic side comes out, you suddenly make people feel uncomfortable and bad about themselves, and that is an unfortunate reality.
A lot of these other commentary videos have touched on the white horse, and obviously he's on a white horse, which is it's found in the book of Revelations, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. The first is the white horse of conquest, also known as pestilence. But Tim, you had an interesting take on it as well.
Yeah, so Tim mentioned, you have the biblical reference and the whole idea of foreboding death and conquest. I also get a kind of Grim Reaper feel from it as well.
Yeah, the black faceless
exactly
man on the horseman.
But also something else. And I guess this is more kind of a conjecture for myself, I'll admit. I doubt he maybe intended this, but there could be a chance. In terms of, I get a bit of a KKK vibe from it. In terms of like, you know, the hooded figure. And more particularly, it's a black hooded figure, which could be
followed by a police car as well.
Yes, but it could be used as a reference to the Black Legion. So yes, I know when I initially said the Ku Klux Klan, a lot of people go, but it's not white. But then there was also the Black Legion, who were like you know, a similar group to the Ku Klux Klan. You know, they had association. Maybe he's touching on something there. And like Tim mentioned, you know, the whole how it kind of happens in line with the police car pulling up, in terms of how, yeah, maybe the police in today's day and age are like the remnants of those type of groups. That whole idea of vigilante justice and doing what you can to keep people of color in their place. Just, you know, from the simplest things, you know, it's not even just about the shootings and the deaths, but also the whole idea of black existence. You know, just like how there was a time in the South, in Jim Crow South, where if you, as a person of color, looked a man in the eye, or, you know, didn't speak to him in a certain way, or was hanging out in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know, maybe you'd get a visit from the Ku Klux Klan or the Black Legion. You have that situation now where you have that existence while black. You see what I mean?
It adds another layer to the whole conquest.
Call
symbolism.
the police. You know,
the symbolism.
Hanging out in a library, call the police. Hang out at Starbucks, call the police. It's
of
like
course.
playing on that. You're out of place, you stand out.
Exactly, because we're intimidated by them. That was part of the conquest of black people, was to make them seem inhuman. So that symbolism kind of speaks on a whole new level when we have this black hooded figure on a horse called Conquest being followed by the police, who routinely regulate black communities or colored communities far more than white communities. Maybe they're in the white communities to make sure that there aren't any nefarious minorities hanging out in groups of 3 or more.
Okay, and then going back to the ending of the video, which to me was like the most daunting and almost like scariest part of the video, in terms of you have Gambino running through what seems to be like an endless tunnel. I think, yeah, others have touched on it before, in terms of it just illustrates the despair, the lack of hope surrounding race relations in America, and the fact that, as, you know, a black man, a person of color, your existence is about survival and constantly running, trying to survive and escape. I think if you look at the history of America, for the most part, for most of the time, it has always been like that. So it was quite daunting, just that idea of no light at the end of the tunnel, as has been the case for the last 400 years.
Chris Hedges refers to it as the Empire of Illusion, and I think that what the last part is, we're gonna have to add to what Tim's saying, is that it's him dealing with the reality of it, because you know, up top he was dancing and he was happy and he was an entertainer and he was distracted and whatnot, but he was shattering the illusion with this. And so I think he was kind of priming himself for the arguments that would appear after, which are like, oh, you hate America, you get a target painted on you when you shatter the illusion, when you shatter the empire of illusion, when you point out its flaws, that it's not free country, it's not this shining beacon on the hilltop that people say it is, because the grim reality of it, that like dark underbelly of America, is what reality is. And so I think that that's him symbolizing black America facing reality.
Yeah, and you know, on that note, we're going to close out. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to us, share the video, comment, and also check out our previous video where we have, you know, a blunt but detailed conversation about race. So, you know, we elaborate on these things and really go into that controversial topic in detail.
And please tell us your theories on the chickens.
Yeah, so tell us about those chickens.
Just to remind you again.
Tell us about, you know, those chickens and why they were making it rain on the chickens in particular.
Yeah.
That was strange.
Anyway, until next time, this was 2 Tims talking trash.
We out.